Hi everyone, welcome to VunTech. In today's video, I'll be sharing how to use the SharePoint API via Postman. I'll be demonstrating how to perform CRUD operations on SharePoint lists and how to upload files to a document library. If you want a SharePoint of your own to follow along this tutorial, watch my previous video to find out how you can get a Microsoft subscription for free. The first thing we must do is register our application on SharePoint. Save your tenant name and site name. In this case, my tenant name is devvun and my site name is dev. Navigate to your URL which ends with appreg_new. Click generate your client ID, save your client ID. Generate your client secret. Do take note that this secret expires in 1 year. The only way to renew this is via an Azure AD PowerShell script. For this tutorial, we'll be using a random title, in this case SharePoint API. For our app domain, we will just be using www.localhost.com. For our redirect URI, we are using https://www.localhost.com. For this first step, you must be the owner of the site with Site Collection Administrator access. The second step is to set permissions to the application we just created. Navigate to your URL which ends with app.inv. For the app ID, it is the client ID value which you've just saved previously. Paste that in the field and click Lookup. All the fields which you've entered previously should populate. Next, copy this permission XML and paste it in the box below. Allow app-only policy means SharePoint only checks for the app permissions. There are also user-only policies and user and app policies, but we won't go into that. You can also define the scope to be on the tenant, site collection, web, or even list library level. You can also define the rights to be read, write, manage, full control, documentation in the link below. Click Create and you'll be brought to a page to trust the application with the permissions you've defined. The third step is to get our SharePoint site tenant ID. Navigate to your URL which ends with app principles. The app identifier is in the format value pipesign client ID at tenant ID. So we want to grab the value after the @ sign for tenant ID. Save your tenant ID. The fourth step is to get our authorization code. We need this authorization code to generate the refresh token. Bear in mind, this authorization code will expire after 10 minutes. In the shown format, you must fill your site URL, client ID, and redirect URI. I've done line breaks for ease of viewing, but be sure not to have any spaces when you paste the string into your address bar. Here, I've copied my string into my notepad and removed the spaces. Paste the string into your address bar. You'll be brought to a page to again trust the application which you've just authorized. And you'll be navigated to your redirect URI. Your authorization code will be after the code parameter. Copy the authorization code and save it. Next, we'll go into Postman. We'll be reusing many of these values, and it's worthwhile to save them as variables in our Postman collection. Enter your tenant name and site name and redirect URI. Copy out our client ID and paste it in Postman. Copy out our client secret and paste it in Postman. Copy out our tenant ID and paste it in Postman. As for our application ID, Microsoft has a list of application IDs on their website. In our case, this is the value for SharePoint Online. You can use the same value. I've placed the link to the documentation in the description box below. We'll use a post method in Postman to generate our refresh token. We need the refresh token to generate the access token, which authorizes us to run the API. The default lifespan of a refresh token is 90 days. The API to call is account.accesscontrol.windows.net/tenantid/tokens/oauth/2. Be sure to set your header content type. And for the body, the grunt type is authorization_code. For the client_ID value, we'll call our variables client ID at tenant ID. For the client_secret value, we'll call our variable client secret. For the code value, we'll call our variable auth code. For our redirect_URI value, we'll call our redirect URI variable. For our resource value, we'll call our variables application ID /tenantname.sharepoint.com at tenant ID. Hit send, and we can grab our refresh token. Once we've saved our refresh token in our collection variables, we'll use a post method in Postman to generate our access token. The access token will be what we use to authenticate our API calls. The default lifespan of the access token is 60 to 90 minutes, which is around 75 minutes on average. The API to call is exactly the same as for the refresh token. The only difference here is that in our API body, our grunt_type is now refresh_token instead of authorization_code. And we don't need the code parameter anymore. Hit send, and we can grab the access token from the results. Let's save this value in our collection variables too. The list name which we are using is the work progress tracker, which I've created via Microsoft's template in SharePoint. We'll use a get method in Postman to get the internal list name. We'll need this value for our CRUD operations on the list later. Be sure to set the authorization to be bearer token. The API to call is the site URL /API/web/lists/getByTitle open bracket single quote your list name single quote close bracket question mark select equals list item entity type full name. For the headers, accept and content type, we'll use the application/JSON OData equals verbose to get the full result in JSON. For the authorization header, we'll put bearer space our variable access token. Hit send and grab the internal list name from the results. Here's the part you've been waiting for, the CRUD APIs. We'll start with C, creating a list item. We'll use a post method, again using the authorization bearer token. The API call is similar to before, except that we are using /items after our list name. The headers are the same except for the accept header where I choose to have no metadata in my output. In our body, use the below format, curly bracket, double quotes, __ metadata, colon, double quotes, colon, curly bracket, double quotes, type, double quotes, colon, double quotes, and place the internal list name from the previous API call here. Finish this line with double quotes and curly brackets and a comma. Next, enter the field names and values of the fields in JSON format before ending with another curly bracket. In my example, I'll just be creating an item with value in the title field. We'll hit send. You can see I have item ID 1 with title my item created and navigate to SharePoint to confirm it has been created. So hit refresh and here you can see the item being created. Next, we'll do R, reading list item. We'll use a get method and authorization bearer token again. If you want to read all list items, the API is same as before, but if you want to read a single item, add a /getById bracket item ID. We'll use the same headers here and hit send. In the output, you can see the item that we've created previously. Here, I can also just add a bracket item ID after /items to get the specific item. Next, we'll do U, updating a list item. We'll use a post method and authorization bearer token. Here, we have to reference the item to update. Be sure to have /items bracket item ID after your list name. We'll need two more parameters in our header. if match with value star or the e tag value, and the xHTTP method with the value merge. For the body, it's the same format as when you create a list item. For those fields which you omit, they will not be updated. Hit send, we get a 204 no content. And let's check out our SharePoint list. It has been updated to value updated item. Next, we'll do D, deleting a list item. We'll use a post method and authorization bearer token. The API call and the headers are exactly the same as update item, except for the xHTTP method, which should have the value delete instead of merge. Let's hit send, we get a 200 OK. We see that in SharePoint it has been deleted. In this step, we'll get our form digest value. The form digest value is essential for working with files. We'll use a post method with authorization bearer token. The API call is the site URL /API/contactsinfo. We'll use the accept, content type, and authorization headers which we've seen before. Hit send, copy out the form digest value that's just before the date and the comma. For the last API, we'll do an upload file. This is a post method with authorization bearer token. We'll use the following API call: site URL /API/web/get folder by server relative URL. Open bracket /sites/your site name/your folder path. In my case, I have a folder called SharePoint API in my shared documents folder. Continue with /files/add bracket URL equals your file name dot file extension. Here you can choose whether you want to override, put true or false, and close the bracket. For headers, we'll use the authorization bearer token. For accept, we'll use the application/JSON OData equals no metadata. For the x-requestdigest header, we use the variable form digest value which we saved earlier. In our body, add the binary file which we wish to upload. Hit send and you'll get a 200 OK. In the response, you can see our face.png file got uploaded to the SharePoint API folder. Here, we'll navigate to SharePoint and we can see that the SharePoint app has uploaded the file. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Do give me a thumbs up if it did, and subscribe if you haven't. If you have any questions, do leave them in the comment section and I'll help address them. See you and take care.